Okay. Good afternoon. We are live here on the Joe Gaither Show, right here on BamaCentral.com, as a part of the BamaCentral.com broadcasting network. I'm Joe Gaither here for another day. Beautiful Tuesday in Tuscaloosa. I hope you and yours are having a great day and everybody's doing well on the internet world out there and about. If you're listening on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, we love you. We appreciate you. Welcome in. We're going to have a fun day. All right, so I've already had a good morning. I went out to the airport right here, Tuscaloosa Regional Airport, and I saw our ladies, the Alabama softball team, hitting a big old plane to go out to Oklahoma City. So I am fired up already today. I got a lot of things I want to talk about. You can follow us on Twitter at Joe Gaither6. You can find me on Facebook at Joe Gaither6, YouTube at BamaCentral, BamaCentral.com, BamaCentral Broadcasting Network. Jump in and join us. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to be joined today by my friend Michael Brauner of WNSP down there in Mobile. Michael Brauner is the host of the drive down there from 3 to 6 every day, 105.1 down on WNSP. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Michael, good afternoon. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Are you doing okay?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. Excited to be on with you in a new little format for you.
Yeah, we're gonna see if we can have some fun today. It's been a heck of a morning already. I figured out I did not know which. I had figured out why I had previously made so many airport mistakes over at the Tuscaloosa Airport. There's about 3 or 4 different terminals over there, but we got to the right one today. It's no big deal. I got there early enough to figure out, hey, this isn't the right one. Maybe I should try across the property there. So it's been a great day so far, and I'm happy to have you join us. But, you know, it's not the softball won't be the focus. We'll move to the softball later. It's a huge day in football country, in SEC football country, as it is SEC spring meetings down there in Destin. I know that that's not too far away from where you guys are. Are you expecting anything fun to come out of SEC spring meetings? Because, look, everybody expects every year we're going to have groundbreaking changes in the league. Everything's going to change. We're going to decide things, and nothing ever happens. So what's your excitement level for the meetings down there in Destin?
Yeah, pretty low. You kind of said it pretty well there. The spring meetings are kind of the appetizer to SEC Media Days, I guess, which we got coming up in Nashville in July. Very excited for that. I believe they're going to be sending a few of us up there. Hope to see you up there as well. But that all being said, yeah, I mean, obviously the big topic of discussion is the SEC 9-game versus 8-game schedule. It does appear it's going to stay at 8 games, which, you know, whether Nick Saban has a big say in that is, kind of up for debate. I think he probably does. The whole permanent opponents and rotating schedule thing. Obviously, you have Oklahoma and Texas there for the first time as well, which adds a layer of excitement. But, you know, it's certainly something that is a bit more built up than what it is. We got our own Lee Shervanian down there. He's going to be getting us some audio that we'll play on the final drive this afternoon. But I wouldn't expect anything groundbreaking or huge coming out of spring meetings.
So you don't think, I mean, Greg Sankey, when they bring in Oklahoma and Texas, they need to say, you guys go sit in the corner. Y'all hush. Y'all don't have speaking rights yet. You just get listening rights. So you guys stay in the corner. Us 14 will figure this thing out. And, you know, y'all signed up to be in on it whether you like it or not. So y'all sit in the corner, hush your mouth. We're going to make some decisions over here. And then maybe next year you get a vote.
Yeah, they're at the kids' table, and they got to earn their place at the big boy table. It was funny. We had a Big Game Boomer, you know, him from Twitter
a
couple of weeks ago, and I asked him, like, if I gave you an over-under of 9.5 years on Oklahoma winning the SEC, would you take the under or the over? And he cautiously took the under, which I think it's going to take Oklahoma more than a decade to win the SEC. We'll see if Texas can throw their hat in the ring before that. But, you know, it's not even that Oklahoma or Texas are incapable of it. I just think that, you know, Georgia's not going anywhere. Alabama's not going anywhere. We'll see what happens this year. But, you know, I think Tennessee is going to be looming for a while. Hopefully Florida starts to turn it around at some point. I just think it's going to take them a while before they become, you know, powers in the SEC. That all being said, obviously it's not an SEC game. So I'm one of the people who believes that Texas is going to come into Bryant-Denny week 2 and beat Alabama this year. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, that's an early opportunity to make a big statement. Now, Georgia should be playing Oklahoma this year in Norman, but instead they're playing Ball State week 2. Totally not bitter about that one, but it didn't seem to be a problem for Alabama playing a home and home against Texas. And I know it was a year later, and every guest I've complained to about that has said something along the lines of, "Oh, if it were up to Georgia, they'd still be playing Oklahoma, and the SEC is not letting them." Now, does it benefit them that they're going to roll to 12-0? And would they win at Oklahoma? Probably, yes. But you'd love to see Georgia having to, not face no challenge until the SEC championship. And I guess they'll be at Tennessee, and we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I mean, as for Georgia and Oklahoma, yes, they certainly need to earn their place at the table.
Well, Michael, my cousin, my alter ego, chimes in with Georgia, the current premier program in the SEC, piggybacking off your take right there. You gonna tell him he's wrong, or are you agreeing?
No, I've had this argument with a lot of listeners, and a lot of Alabama fans don't want to say it, but what are you going to say? They're the back-to-back defending national champions. It's something Nick Saban has done one time, which, by the way, if we were in a college football playoff era in 2013, Alabama would have had a damn good chance to three-peat, even with the Kick 6 Iron Bowl loss. But, of course, we weren't in a playoff era at the time. That being said, again, it makes it a little bit easier to three-peat now that we're in a playoff era. It'll be even easier in a 12-team playoff era. So we'll see what happens there. As for Alabama this year, it'd be a massive accomplishment, I think, if they got to the playoff. It's a hard team to figure out. I feel very good about pretty much every position group on the team. Obviously, the big question mark is the quarterback. But I think that the quarterback situation is certainly a higher ceiling than it's been that Alabama has won national championships with. If you look at the A.J. McCarrons and Jake Cokers of the world, not to throw any shade on my Mobile guys from down here in St. Paul's, but I definitely it's easy to make the argument like, oh, it's a different game, like college football has evolved, you can't win with a quarterback like that. But look at the last two national champions in Georgia. Stetson Bennett is a back-to-back defending national champion. Now, I think he got a lot better this year, but 2021 Stetson Bennett was a game manager. And I don't even say that as an insult. That's just what he was, and he did enough for the national championship.
That dude hit 2 throws in the national championship.
All he had to do. I'll tell you what, if Ajayi Hall could catch the ball and Jameson Williams' knee could have held up, it would. Maybe we'd be having a different conversation.
Two throws, Michael Brauner, and the fingertips of George Pickens off the first bomb in the first half. Like that throw, I'm sitting in the press box, I'm thinking, no chance. Oh no, Pickens was fully extended, fingertips out. It was like a miraculous play for George Pickens. But you're right. Okay, Stetson
Still
Bennett.
enough for the Patriots to pass on him for Tyquan Thornton in the draft. So.
Well, it's because George Pickens likes to fight his teammates. He had a little bit of penchant for getting into scuffles. I don't think Bill Belichick liked that too much.
He's got that dog in him.
Well, it's kind of a requirement to play high level football. Michael, where do we stand? I mean, let's go back to SEC spring meeting because that's really what we're focusing on. Where do we stand on 8 versus 9 games? Because you've got a massive split. You've got a massive split in the SEC coaches division where Kirby Smart already has said it's the most pointless conversation ever. Let's see if I get his correct quote. Let's see. Here we go from Brett McMurphy. Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart on 8 versus 9 SEC game discussion. Quote, the most overrated conversation there was. It's not a big deal to me. And Nick Saban has now kind of gone back and forth between 8 or 9 games. In his quote this morning, things go into this like TV contracts. I'm sure a lot of those things will factor into it. I've always been in favor of playing all games against Power 5 opponents. So he backs kind of off the 9-game SEC schedule, but modifies it to say all Power 5 opponents. Where do you stand on 8 versus 9 games? We obviously know the Vanderbilts, the Kentuckys, the Mississippi States of the world want to have that extra cupcake on the schedule because, oh my gosh, it's such an accomplishment to go to the Tax Slayer Bowl. But where do we stand here?
I mean, I've gone really back and forth on Nick Saban's stance on this. It's like, yeah, he's always been publicly a proponent of we should play all Power 5 opponents, but then, Alabama has 2 cupcakes a year, which we talked about this last year after the Utah State game when Alabama went to Texas and looked sluggish. It's like, did Utah State really prepare you to get ready for Texas? No, of course they didn't. You win 55-0. You have Blake Anderson, coach at Utah State saying this is one of the best football teams we've ever seen. As it turned out, by Alabama standards, they really weren't all that good. And then so, and I'll tell you what, I had never been more disappointed in Nick Saban than when he came out very vehemently against when the 3 rotating opponents came out. And for Alabama, it was Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU. And he was like, well, Mississippi State's the iconic Mississippi State-Alabama rivalry. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's an hour from Tuscaloosa and Alabama just beats up on Mississippi State. And I know old school Alabama fans like to say that LSU is not a rivalry, but it is. The Alabama-LSU game is big time every year. Obviously, you weren't going to get rid of the Iron Bowl. Obviously, you weren't going to get rid of the third Saturday in October. So those were 2 that had to stay. And then it's LSU. Just from a neutral fan perspective, trying to remove Alabama, yes, would I rather have not a free win, but a better chance of a win against Mississippi State every year? Sure. But the LSU game, that's not something you can get rid of. I look forward to the LSU game every year. I was in Baton Rouge this year for it, and I was very sad after the game, and it was unfortunate, and the Tiger fans weren't all that nice to me.
They give you the tiger bait.
I had 7-year-olds coming up to me and calling me tiger bait, and it was funny because I went to the Ole Miss game the following week, and just like the dichotomy between Oxford and Baton Rouge, I'll take Oxford any day of the week there.
Really?
Oh my God, it wasn't even close.
You want the country club atmosphere? You want the
LSU?
toddies?
LSU, it was very people were. It's a friendly chirp, but after the game, and this is after we lost, it was pretty contentious to the point where I thought, wow, if Bama had found a way to win this game, I might be in some physical danger right now. The fans would be so upset. And even after the Ole Miss game, it was people were upset and people didn't want to hear chirps or anything like that. But you can understand that they just lost a game. You could argue they should have won. But Ole Miss fans are some of the nicest people I've ever met in the world. They'll invite you in. So will LSU fans. I'm not saying negative things about LSU fans, but it was definitely more contentious in Baton Rouge than it was in Oxford. I think the people I was with can attest to that too.
That's what makes it more fun. The kind of adrenaline getting popped up into your blood. Oh my gosh, are we going to get out of this stadium alive? And you got to think about the last time LSU had won down there in Baton Rouge. It had been quite. When was it? 07?
Yeah.
07?
It had been a minute.
I mean, they beat us up here. They beat us up here. No, 07. That was up here. Because
they won in 2011 in Bryant-Denny.
Right. And then won in 19 in Bryant-Denny. So it must have been 06, but it must have been the last year with one Mike Shula. Yeah. So they were thirsty for it. And give them a little break. They were thirsty for it. But why are we... Okay, because I had the same takeaways from you about Nick Saban. Why are we complaining about LSU, Tennessee, and Auburn? 3 teams that are already on your schedule every single year, with or without Oklahoma and Texas's additions. They're if Oklahoma and Texas just decide to blow up and never play football again, you still have Tennessee, Auburn, and LSU on your schedule every single year. Now, I do understand Mississippi State, because proximity-wise, it's 45 to an hour away, hour and change away. It makes perfect sense. You've been playing for a long time. Yes, it's not a rivalry here, the win-loss column, but it's Mississippi State fans get into it, and we kind of get into it as well. I think if you're going to do anything, you can make it Tennessee, Auburn, and Mississippi State. The issue is, Michael, I don't know that all this arguing about who our 3 opponents are and who 8 or 9 games. I think the main argument should be, let's get it to 9 games. Let's get it to 9 or even 10, because it really needs to be 10 to make it even scheduling. But let's get it to 9 games, and let's not worry about who your 3 opponents are, because if you rotate properly, you go to divisionless football. You basically make the SEC one 16-team division. You end up playing, obviously, your 3 opponents, and then you have 6 rotators. That's what, 6 and 6 is 12, plus your 3 is 15, and then you're the 16th. Yeah, there you go. You're set. 3 permanent guys, 6 rotators. In 4 years, you're playing everybody in the conference. And, the biggest issue is you can't end up with your rotators, your 6 rotators. If you're Alabama, let's just hypothetically say you've already taken LSU, Tennessee, and Auburn. Boom. That's what Greg Sankey gave you. You say, thank you, sir. May I have another? You can't have your 6 rotators be a year where you end up with Oklahoma, A&M, Georgia, Florida, that kind of thing. That's really where the balance has to come in. You can give us LSU, you can give us Tennessee and Auburn as our permanent opponents. I think I'm perfectly fine with that because traditional rivals, big-time marquee games. You look at CBS, the highest ratings over the last 15 years have been the Alabama-Auburn game, followed closely with the Alabama-LSU game. They're not giving that up.
Well, it's funny because, when people have complained about Alabama's schedule, and now obviously Georgia is the one with the easy schedule this year, but, the easy argument to make with Alabama's schedule over the past 5 years or so is, you could say, well, it's not Alabama's fault that they don't have to play Alabama.
Sure.
Look at Auburn right now. Auburn is going to have to play Alabama and Georgia every year. So, I think if you're Nick Saban and you're complaining about that, it's Alabama doesn't have a lot of room to complain. If you want to continue to be the program that you've been, it should be other people complaining about having to play Alabama, not Alabama complaining about having to play LSU. We're Alabama. You don't complain about having to play LSU. It is what it is. And as for the cupcake games and the 8 versus 9, you just don't gain anything out of beating Austin Peay at 11 a.m. the week before the Iron Bowl, and then you look sluggish the next week, and then you're going to complain about – and I will say it's gotten better over the last 5 years, but, not this year the attendance at the Austin Peay game was embarrassing, frankly, but it was 11 a.m. and it was cold. But that being said, it's you're going to complain about attendance. Why are students going to want to stay for 4 quarters? And again, I say this not from personal experience because in my time as a student, I was someone who's going to stay for 4 quarters no matter what. But I can understand people who aren't psychos like yourself and I, who are normal casual football fans. They're not going to want to stay for 4 quarters if you've beaten the hell out of Austin Peay. Why would they? It just doesn't make any sense. So give them an extra SEC game, give them a reason to stay, give them an opponent that someone is going to want to care about, and it should, in theory, benefit everything else.
152 Michael Brauner to 7 last year. 152-7 when you consider Utah State, ULM, and Austin Peay. And I ask you Alabama fans who say, we need those games. We need to get the backups in. We need to get the young guys in. We need to develop the depth. What did those 3 games last year provide the Alabama Crimson Tide team when you played Tennessee, when you played LSU, and honestly, when you played A&M where you escaped by the skin of your teeth? Come on. What did those 3 games give you where, we had to have them on your schedule? They absolutely, Utah State 100% prepared Alabama to go into Austin the next week and play a big noon big noon kickoff and play to a 1-point game.
For this year, I'll say I'm glad to have the MTSU game before Texas just because of the uniqueness with the quarterback situation. But in an ordinary year, I would much rather play a legitimate opponent week 1, figure out what you are. I'll tell you what, after the Utah State game, we won 55-0. Defense looked great. Offense did what it did. I thought this is one of the best Alabama teams I've ever seen. And of course, we weren't horrible, but we weren't very good. And the defensive performance against Utah State, of course, showed nothing. They leaked against Tennessee. They leaked against LSU. They couldn't get it done. Even against Arkansas after Bryce Young got hurt, they couldn't stop a nosebleed. Of course, the offense wasn't moving the ball for 2 quarters after that either. But that being said, it showed nothing for the forecast of the season. And so now going forward, I'm sure we're gonna beat the heck out of MTSU, but I'm not gonna take anything away from that. I'm not gonna go into the Texas game with any more confidence because Tyler Buckner and Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe all made a couple nice throws against MTSU because they can't cover Malik Benson. They can't cover Isaiah Bond. Why would they? They're not supposed to be able to. This benefits MTSU, sure. We're gonna give you $1 million to come get beaten by a lot of points by Alabama, and it's good exposure for their program, whatever, like see their logos on ESPN. Other than that, I don't know what they get out of it besides a beatdown. But it just doesn't do anything for Alabama, and I am quite sick of it, honestly. If you play an all SEC schedule, like it doesn't put you at any disadvantage. You go undefeated in 2020, and I understand it was less games.
It feels still 10 SEC games.
Yeah, I also, it feels like Nick Saban is running from something. I don't think that's crazy to say. And I understand why. Oh, well, we have these cupcake games. Like, that's 3 free wins a year. Why would we want to give those up? I get it, but like at the same time, I just don't like to hear it when they don't want to play more SEC games.
Well, okay. A bunch of thoughts came off my head off your last thoughts right there. Utah State last year, people said going into the summer, Utah State, their passing offense is really going to help us prepare for Texas the next week. They spread it out. Their guys are going to be able to see looks, see that. Dude, the athleticism is night and day between the Aggies, no disrespect to you guys, and the Longhorns. The quarterback ability, even when Quinn Ewers goes out, like the quarterback ability for Texas versus Utah State is night and day different. And so, I'm with you in the fact that these games do not help Alabama. Get ready. Okay, let's take a broader look. The big picture for this 2023 season is, can Alabama reestablish the Bama factor, the Bama standard?
Run the damn ball.
Right. Can they get back to...
I bet they can against MTSU.
Exactly. I don't care what they do against MTSU. I do not care one bit. We can run for 500 bleeping yards. I'm sorry, my man Trayshawn Holden looked like all SEC last year against Utah State. And Trayshawn, you fooled me. You fooled me bad. You broke my heart.
Well,
I don't care what they're doing in these small games.
Yeah, he fooled all of us.
And so, okay, you go into the extra game. This year I look at it and I see at South Florida, and you're going to get them twice now in the next 2 years.
A true road game.
Perfect. Thank you, Nick Saban. I don't need us to play Ohio State, Oklahoma, USC, and Texas like my old NCAA college football game like I would do just for fun. But give me Wake Forest, give me Indiana, give me, Kansas State again, give me Oregon State, give me some of these bottom-end Power 5 opponents, and, then I will be able to write for you and speak to you. Yes, Alabama is preparing itself against the best. Nobody wants to see us play against Austin Peay. And now Nick Saban's rebuttal is, and the typical Alabama fan rebuttal is, well, nobody wants to play us. That is so not true. Look at the schedules over the next 10 years, and you can see, well done, Greg Byrne. We're getting a lot of good non-conference games going forward.
Yeah, it's a cop-out to say no one wants to play. Like, you can get those games scheduled if you want those games scheduled.
All right, and lastly, you brought up how there's no detriment, there's no downside to going to 9 or 10 games and playing all Power 5 opponents. Here's the downside, and here's what the coaches are seeing. The coaches see a new 12-team college football playoff, and they say, oh, I'm not Alabama, I'm Ole Miss. I'm not Alabama, I'm Mississippi State, I'm Arkansas. I am never going to get into the 4-team playoff. But I can get into a 12-team playoff, and I can get into a 12-team playoff if I have the right recipe, the right schedule, everything just falls perfectly. I can come in there at number 9, and number 8, number 12. And so then they start to weigh the extra, do we play a Power 5 opponent, or does Arkansas bring in Arkansas State for homecoming and tear up the Red Wolves and Butch Jones, for their extra game just so they can get their basic bye week until they play LSU that next week in their rivalry game. So the bottom end of the roster, or the bottom end of the league, sees an opportunity coming up to get into the playoff that they didn't previously have, and so financially, the SEC with 12 slots in the playoff, the SEC is trying to position itself for 4, 5, 6 teams getting selected every single year.
Well, it's funny you use Arkansas as an example because you're talking about a team that lost at home to Liberty this past season. But that being said, it's like, yeah, I mean, the 12-team playoff pretty much changes everything. You're talking about you can get a 3-loss team. We haven't seen a 2-loss team in the 14 playoff, but you can probably get a 3-loss team in probably never a 4-loss team, but who knows? If look at Auburn, I don't know, they lose to Alabama, Georgia, and 2 other good teams, and then beat 6 good teams. Who knows what can happen and sneak into a 12th. The no 2-loss team the new version of that is going to be no 4-loss team has made the 12-team playoff, and eventually it might happen. 12 teams completely changes the landscape of everything, and I'm all for it. I think more teams. We've talked about this a lot. I'm not a big proponent of meaningless bowl games. I don't like consolation games. I don't think you should make a postseason for going 7-5. I don't think you should be rewarded for that. So, if it were up to me, it'd be a 25-team playoff and there's no bowl game. but that's an entirely different discussion.
What about the bowl games? I mean, this is something that many people don't even consider. These college programs lose money going to bowl games. They lose money going to bowl games. They talk about, they're a big money maker. It's all for TV. It's literally all for TV and all for the sponsors. I enjoyed watching the Sugar Bowl this past year, watching Alabama handle its business. But in the future, I would love to see Nick Saban treat every bowl game like a start to next year. If we're not in the college football playoff, then all you seniors can get the hell out of here, and we're turning over the roster so we can start next year.
And it's funny you say that because, as awesome as it was to watch one more magical Bryce Young performance, and you can argue, Tennessee, but you can argue that Bryce Young's Sugar Bowl was maybe the best game of his career, if not right up there in the top 3. So as awesome as it was to watch that, I was arguing before the game, Ty Simpson should start this game. Yes. We need to move on to next year. What value do we get out of beating Kansas State with Bryce Young? It's nice, a bowl game for Alabama that's not in the playoff. Okay, it's one more chance to watch Alabama play before we don't get to watch them play for 6 months. It's going to be enjoyable. I'm going to sit down and watch it. It's going to be fun. And I love, as much as I love Bryce Young, he's my favorite Alabama player of all time, and I'm excited to watch him one more time, and Will Anderson's gonna get his curtain call. It's gonna be great, but it's all for show. What value did Alabama get out of the Sugar Bowl besides a trophy that didn't end in a college football playoff championship? So Ty Simpson should have started that game. I would have loved to have gotten a look at Ty Simpson. And if they lose, what is the difference for Alabama losing the Sugar Bowl with Ty Simpson starting and we get a good look at Ty Simpson versus winning the Sugar Bowl with Bryce Young putting on a dominating performance? The end result's the same. You're preparing for this season without Bryce Young and without Will Anderson and whoever else. So why not just use it to prepare for the next season? That's why I'm just not a big proponent of the for show bowl game that doesn't do anything. Again, it's different if you're Kansas State, for example. It's a program that's not that game was a huge deal to Kansas State fans. You had Kansas State fans traveling from Manhattan, Kansas to New Orleans to watch their team play, and that's New Year's Six Bowl. It's a huge deal for them. But for an Alabama, I just think you could have gotten more value out of that game and could have given Ty Simpson some legitimate game reps, see how he is. Instead of Jermaine Burton carving up in Ja'Cory Brooks carving up the Kansas State defense because Bryce Young is putting on such a magical performance. Jamarian Miller had a nice game. I guess we got some nice value out of that. But other than that, it's this is cool. On to next year.
All right, so let's talk about next year just a little bit. As we had a fun weekend, interesting weekend here in Tuscaloosa. 7 new guys. Well, 7 guys we're all familiar with by now, but 7 players officially enrolled. That's the right word. Enrolled in Tuscaloosa. We saw Keon Keeley, Richard Young, Yanzi Pierre, and Connor Talty, the freshmen, the 2023s, enroll on campus. And we saw the transfers, Tyler Buckner, Jalen Key, and Trey Amos also enroll on campus this weekend. Lots of people talking about Keon Keeley. Lots of people talking about Richard Young. More people talking about Tyler Buckner. Who's got Michael Brauner's eye out of these 7?
I mean, obviously, the reason for talking about Tyler Buckner is obvious. He plays cornerback. So, I hope, not that I have anything against Tyler Buckner, but I would hope that Tyler Buckner isn't the guy of those 7 who makes the biggest impact, because that would mean that what we had on the roster was not good enough, and we certainly thought it was. So, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm rooting against Tyler Buckner or anything like that, but if Tyler Buchner is the starting quarterback for this Alabama team, it's really tough to get excited about the prospects of this offense. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has 6 touchdowns and 8 interceptions in his career. You're all in on Tyler Buchner, huh?
No, but come on, don't we see the similarities between this upcoming offense and the Georgia offense from the last 2 years?
Like, sure, I'd just rather
strong offensive line, big running backs, lots of tight ends.
I mean,
Tyler Buchner's just going to have to dink and dunk and Stetson Bennett our way to a national championship.
In hindsight, because if you remember, for a day or two, Alabama fans were like, is Drake May going to transfer to Alabama? I called nonsense on that because this is before, we really knew anything about how the quarterbacks were performing in spring. And in hindsight, I called nonsense on that. I said, we're Alabama. We recruit quarterbacks. We don't need to bring in Drake May. In hindsight, that would have been pretty awesome, wouldn't it have? But no, I mean, looking at it now, it's like I'm going to go ahead and predict that Tyler Buchner is going to be the third string quarterback on this team. I think Milroe wins the job early. I think Simpson is the backup, and honestly, I think Simpson ends up taking over, barring I think Saban goes with experience early. As for the 7 that are enrolled now, of the names you mentioned, I'm looking at Keon Keeley. They announced he's wearing 31. It's pretty poetic there. Yonze Pierre is going to be a good player too, but Richard Young will find his time, but I think Justice Haynes is better. We'll see what happens with Connor Talty. Obviously, barring a groin injury to Will Reichard, he's not going to be a factor this season. We hope Connor Talty can build on the Will Reichard legacy, but I mean, you could argue that Reichard coming back is maybe the biggest addition, maybe the biggest comeback for Alabama this year. Reichard wasn't phenomenal this year. He was okay. I don't know. Reichard's an interesting one to figure out. I feel like I trust him to make a kick, but if it's longer than 45 yards, I don't have a whole lot of confidence that it's going through the goalpost. See the Tennessee game, for example.
Connor Talty showed on social media last week that he could run 22 miles an hour. Does that make you excited for him?
Are we going to have Ty Simpson doing a holding and a little toss back behind the head for Connor Talty? 22 miles an hour. Maybe we can find some sort of use for that at some point. Hey, you say that now, just mark that down. I'll tell you what, if we ever run a trick play with Connor Talty, running the ball, that'll be the first thing I remember for sure.
I'll send you that clip. So look, you look at Tyler Buchner, you say, oh, he might be the third string quarterback. And we've already kind of compared what Georgia needs or what Alabama needs to do to Georgia's offense last year. Look, 49 points against Oregon, 48 against South Carolina, 42 against Auburn, 42 against Florida.
There's 3 picks against South Carolina too.
Mississippi State. No, this is Georgia's scores last year. Georgia's putting up the scores last year. So all Tyler Stetson Bennett Buchner needs to do is just fit into the offense. And let the offensive line, let Tommy Reese, let the tight ends, and of course, Malik Benson, let them do their work.
Yeah, and I feel better about what Alabama has. Just comparing Alabama this year to Georgia last year. I feel better about what Alabama has in the receiver room. Just continuity-wise, and you add Malik Benson compared to Georgia last year. Obviously, Georgia goes out and adds Dominic Lovett and Ra Thomas as well in the portal. So, man, Georgia's really getting on my nerves these days. They very well might be upgrading at quarterback too. Carson Beck, I don't know. Get that Heisman future in now. I think Carson Beck is going to be really good.
But Michael, this is why Kirby, when asked about 8 versus 9 games, calls it an overrated discussion.
He doesn't care. What does it matter to him?
Put a team across the field from him, put him in a uniform that's not red, black, or white, and let the Georgia teams play. He don't care. That's all he cares about. And I think it shows a sign of kind of where Georgia is as the elite program. Like, come on, we're on the mountaintop. Anybody who wants to come get us can come get us. Whereas, I'm sorry, Nick Saban, I love you, I support you, but you crying about the journey to the top of the mountain doesn't give me a lot of confidence that we're going to get right back there.
What are we thinking about this Dylan Raiola, Julian Sayin comparisons? Because they're going to be tied together for life now.
I've seen that Raiola right now is the kind of prototypical physical specimen. Excuse me. But all the Alabama reporters that I talk to say that Julian Sayin is the longer-term project that will have a higher ceiling down the road. I don't know. I don't know if that's just Bama
we'll see how the quarterback play is this season, because a long-term project might be exactly what Alabama doesn't need. So we'll see what happens.
But I got faith in Milroe. I got stupid faith in Milroe and Simpson. Maybe it's just everybody talking, discrediting Alabama this year, going into this year, saying that, they're going to fall off. It makes me want to dive in and jump in and defend all our quarterbacks and defend our players, because usually it's, Alabama's unbeatable, and the devil's advocate in me wants to be like, no, they're not. Now the devil's advocate in me is like, this team can go win a national championship.
Yeah,
I think they can.
You've always had a tendency to go against the grain, for sure, against the media narrative. I was talking about this with a friend yesterday, and I don't think I'm crazy for thinking this team can win a national championship. Like I said, I feel really good about every position group on the team except for quarterback. And it's not that I feel terrible about the quarterback. It's obviously just a big question mark, no matter who you throw out there. So I think the defense is going to be a lot better, both from a personnel and a coaching standpoint. Pete Golding. I'll tell you what. You remember when we hosted a show together on Tide a long time ago, and we had the discussion who should be Alabama's next head coach, Pete Golding or Lane Kiffin? I argued for Pete Golding, and in hindsight, one of the more foolish things I've ever said. And that take just got worse and worse and worse over the last 2 years. And then Pete Golding. I don't know, who do you blame more for that defensive collapse against Tennessee, Nick Saban or Pete Golding? Because certainly some blame's got to fall on Nick Saban.
More on Coach Saban.
It's at a certain point,
more on Coach Saban, just based on the experience.
What's the definition of insanity? You do the same thing over and over again.
Right.
I think there's going to be a different result. They ran the Jalen Hyatt run fast play, and he burns us for 5 touchdowns, and effectively ends the season. Obviously, you still had a chance against LSU, but guess what? Lost the LSU game. It wasn't the offense. It was the fact that you couldn't stop Jaden Daniels in the fourth quarter, which, again, falls on the brilliant two minds of Pete Golding and Nick Saban in 2022. It was a rough year for Nick Saban in 2022.
Yes, but I think you're going to see here's the difference, Michael, with the defense. I think the schemes will be very similar, but I think the effort and attention to detail will be much higher. I think. Would you agree the tackling over the last 3 years has been subpar at best?
Yeah.
Lots of arm tackling, lots of diving, lots of head and arm. I think you're going to see a vast improvement in the tackling. And
can we just blame Henry To'oTo'o for that?
Yes, we can. Yes. But I think the defense is going to be improved because of attention to detail, not because the schemes are going to be.
I'll tell you what, if the defense isn't improved, this is a 4-loss team. So
no,
if the defense is the same as it was, this team is losing 4 games.
The schedule's not good enough for that.
You're losing to Texas. You're getting swept by Texas.
Okay.
You probably lose to LSU. You probably lose the Iron Bowl. And there's probably one more in there. If that defense is as bad as it was against Tennessee and in the second half against LSU, what confidence do you have in Jalen Milroe?
Well, the thing was that they weren't that bad the whole season. There were stretches of really good play too.
There were. I look at the Mississippi State game, for example. I think that's probably the best case of a dominant defensive performance. But I don't know. They're going to be playing some good quarterbacks this year. I'll tell you what, and this is blasphemy, but I'm a believer in Peyton Thorne and Auburn. I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to win 7 or 8 games. I think that Iron Bowl is, it's in Voodoo Magic Stadium down there. So, we'll see what happens. But I do not feel good about the Iron Bowl. I think Alabama's got to go into it pretty much undefeated, because I don't think Alabama's going to win the Iron Bowl. So, again, I'm pessimistic because
I've already said Texas and Auburn now.
Yeah, those are I'll tell you what, we're going to beat LSU. We're going to beat LSU. I'm pretty confident in that one. I don't think we lose to LSU back-to-back years. I don't think we lose to Tennessee back-to-back years, although I think Joe Milton's really good. And I think Tennessee is more of a system team than a you lose Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman. Oh well, you swap in new guys and Josh Heupel's system is going to be what it is. Joe Milton could be better than Hendon Hooker. He's going to be this year. Not that Anthony Richardson was great at Florida, but in terms of the guy who shoots up draft boards and becomes a first round pick, that's Joe Milton this year. He's going to have a really good season, and Tennessee's going to be good. I get varying answers when I ask, can Tennessee win the East? I get like maybe to hell no. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, Tennessee effectively has to go undefeated to win the East. If you look at Georgia's schedule, like obviously they have to beat Georgia, but they probably can't have a slip up anywhere else. So you go to Bryant Denny, and so. But although that being said, you beat Georgia. Georgia goes 11-1. You lose to Alabama. Both are 11-1. Tennessee wins the East. So we'll see what happens. I don't think that Tennessee can win the East, but I don't know. I think the ceiling for that team is very, very high.
All right, let's spin it. We got about 10 minutes left here, Michael. Let's move away from the football just a little bit because Alabama basketball had a little bit of news today, a little bit of interesting news today. Mark Sears announces that he's coming back to Alabama to continue. I think he's going to be a senior, so he's going to come back to Alabama. And there's a little bit of news around Javon Quinterly. Hard to kind of situation. Yeah, Javon Quinterly appears to be working out for the Milwaukee Bucks. Is that what I've seen? But Nate Oates told our friend Nick Kelly of the Tuscaloosa News about a half hour ago that they're still expecting Javon Quinterly to return to the team. So what's it mean, Alabama basketball? You get Mike Sears back. You might get JQ back. Can we get back to competing for an SEC championship?
Well, the front court is in complete and utter shambles. So, I mean, the back court should be pretty damn good. Javon Quinterly is an interesting situation. A Twitter account I follow by the name of Trilly Donovan. Not sure if you're familiar with them, but he's predicted pretty much every offseason move. Said last night that lit Alabama Twitter on fire that Jaden Quinterly might not be the only Quinterly in the portal this offseason. And then Nate Oates comes out today and says we expect JQ back. So we'll see what happens there. As for whether he's back or not, doesn't do a whole lot for me. I'm happy Sears is coming back. Sears was frustrating, man, because you could argue, obviously Brendan Miller's Brendan Miller, but you could make the argument that Mark Sears, through a large stretch of this season, was the best player on the team. Pound for pound, and I say pound for pound, was the best rebounder on the team for a lot of stretch. The guy's a dog. He pulls down boards at 6'1" or whatever his height is. But, obviously down the stretch couldn't hit a shot and kind of just disappeared offensively. He just wasn't there when they needed him to be. And obviously Brandon Miller disappeared in the tournament as well and had his worst game of the season at the worst time. But that being said, no, when Bediako declared, or I guess he hasn't officially said, that he's staying in the draft. But when the report came out last week that Bediako is not going to be back, which I don't even know if he's officially said that himself, but it seems like that is happening. He is staying in the draft, which is an entirely different discussion as to whether that's a good decision or not for him. Probably not, but good for him. I wish him the best of luck. Unfortunately, it comes with Alabama's front court and defense kind of being in a really tough spot because what did Nate Oates not really do this offseason? Didn't recruit big men because didn't really need to. Thought Bediako would be back. Like Kalel Ware, the Oregon kid, kind of like was rumored for Alabama, like maybe at that Clowney position, maybe at center, but they just didn't really go after him that hard, mostly because they didn't really need him. And now you're in a spot where you almost have to land a big man at this point. Like, I love me some Noah Clowney, but not Noah Clowney, I'm sorry, Nick Pringle. But, he has a higher offensive ceiling than Bediako, I think. But even if he reaches his defensive ceiling, he's not going to be Bediako on defense ever. He can't be. But that being said, so I have heard a little bit about Ernest Uda, this Kansas center. We'll see. That would be massive. That would kind of be the addition of the offseason. I'm excited about Aaron Estrada. I'm excited about Latrell Wright. So obviously the Jaquan Walton situation is really unfortunate. Obviously Oates did what he had to do with that. I don't blame him there. It is what it is when something like that happens after the season that it was, without getting into all that. It is what it is. Yeah, you had to get rid of Walton. It's just very unfortunate because I think he was going to be a huge piece in replacing Brandon Miller. But yeah, when Bediako, that report came out, I kind of said, wow, this team is going to have a tough time winning 20 games. And I'm getting a little more confident now. Obviously, I think the backcourt's going to be very good again. They need another piece on at big man so badly. I guess they're going to be relying on Sam Walters and Diabate to play big minutes, which is fine. I don't know. Walters probably going to get pushed around early. But he can hit shots. Clowney could hit shots too, but his three. What did he miss? 35 straight threes at one point in the middle.
Oh yes.
So we'll see what happens. I'm cautiously optimistic, but no, I don't think we can win the SEC. Like Auburn's in a way better spot than we are right now. It's not even close. Kentucky's going to be really good. Tennessee should be good. We'll see what happens with Julian Phillips up there, but no, they're not going to win 30 games. They're probably not the SEC.
Lie to me, Michael. Lie to me.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. If they win 25 games, it's the most impressive coaching job, maybe ever. They're in a tough.
Mark that.
Put that down. I mean, Nate Oates is in a tough spot here, but I am big on Estrada. I do think he's going to be really good. I just wish he could play center.
Well, you're down on the football team. You're down on the basketball team. Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up with softball.
I'm optimistic on both, but
okay, all right. Let's wrap it up with softball because before we got live today, I was over at the Tuscaloosa Regional Airport seeing Patrick Murphy and them girls, Montana Fouts, Jayla Torrance, Bailey Dowling, the Who's Who, Jenna Johnson, all over there. The entire team, was over there. They're all leaving to go to Oklahoma City. Honestly, this team has vastly impressed me. This team has overachieved from where I was standing about 2 months ago. And the last 3 weeks, Murph talked about it today, the Mudita being very, very high and just the buy-in. He said that this has been his favorite coaching experience, his favorite team that he's coached thus far. And I think because of some of the noise of, hey, Murph's lost it, hey, this team isn't quite there, and then boom, to have them right back in Oklahoma City. Obviously, tough draw. Tough draw. Taking on Tennessee on Thursday, and if you get past the Vols, you're probably going to get the winner of Oklahoma and Stanford being the Sooners right there in their backyard. Michael Brauner, what are we making of this week out there at Oklahoma City, and then kind of the last chapter of Montana Fouts?
Well, it's funny you brought up the noise around the season. What was it? The game one against Northwestern is the first super regional they've lost at home in 12 years or something like that. Since it was something like that. I can't remember the year off the top of my head, but yeah, resilience is probably the best word to describe this team. You got an injured Montana Fouts on a knee brace going out there and putting the team on her back. Jayla Torrance is phenomenal. This team's special. Do I think they can win a World Series? No, I don't. But the fact that they've gotten there is pretty spectacular. Twitter was ablaze with we need to have a conversation about Patrick Murphy after the game one loss. Which
roll my eyes.
Roll your eyes and say what you want about that. But it is what it is. There, I think the transfer of KB Sides, people are still upset about that one, which you understand why. But all that being said, it's Montana Fouts,
20 years in coaching, Michael. Sometimes you make personnel mistakes.
Yeah, it is what it is there. But what more can you say about Montana? I mean, you got to put her probably on the Mount Rushmore of Alabama athletes ever at this point. I mean, to do it again and bring them back on an injured leg, it really is just incredible at this point. She is so special, and this team is special. Like I said, I don't think they can. I mean, it'd be a miracle if they even if they beat Tennessee, frankly. But they get to face Oklahoma. I think it will get ugly. It is what it is. Again, call me pessimistic, but I think that's more realistic than pessimistic. It's Oklahoma. So, but no, it is special what this team has done, and it's been a pleasure to watch them, and feel very grateful to have lived through the Montana Fouts era at Alabama. It's just it's a special time.
Well, we look forward to it. It's going to be a huge week around here following all the sports of the capstone. We'll continue to follow SEC spring meetings as the coaches say much to do about nothing after each session. But we'll follow all their quotes. You can find my man Austin Hannon following all that for BamaCentral. I'm going to get onto that train as well. Austin needs a little bit of help. I'm going to jump in this afternoon and help him with that. We're going to talk. We're going to continue the week with Andy Phillips on Friday. from Alabama baseball. He's going to talk about Alabama's regional this coming up weekend, his career, and just kind of this Alabama baseball team as well. And then we're going to obviously follow Alabama softball. We're sending Katie Wyndham and Edwin Stanton out to Oklahoma City. You can follow them on their own Twitters and, of course, at BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com for all their coverage. Michael Brauner, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and listen to you in the afternoons on 105.1?
Oh, appreciate that. Thank you very much for having me. This was a blast. But you can find me on Twitter at mbraunerwnsp. We do the final drive 3 to 6 every afternoon in Mobile, 105.5 if you're in Mobile. But you can also get us on the Sound of Mobile app. So download the Sound of Mobile app. Myself and Corey LeBounty. Today we're gonna have Tony Sakalis. We're gonna have Zach Blackerby. It's gonna be good stuff. We'll have KJ Lacey, Saraland quarterback, by the way. We'll see if Alabama can throw their hat in the ring for him. But we'll have him on tomorrow. Give me a follow on Twitter at mbraunerwnsp. And appreciate you guys for tuning in. It's been a blast.
Tony, Michael, tell Tony I said hello. You know I love him. Tell him I said hello. On the air, though. On the air.
I'll do it on the air.
Yeah, there you go. Michael Brauner, ladies and gentlemen, for WNSP. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And thank you guys, the listener, for hanging out with me today. We're going to wrap up this show right here. Want to say thanks to the Bama Central Broadcasting Network for allowing me to do it another day. You can follow all the Bama Central podcasts, all things Bama, and Blue Collar Unplugged right there at BamaCentral.com. Looking forward to bringing you another episode tomorrow. I'll be back with you at 1 o'clock tomorrow right here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and anywhere you listen to your podcast. For Joe Gaither, hey, that's me, the listener. That's you, Michael Brauner. That was him. We had a lot of fun today. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Roll Tide.